Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. This is my friend Michaela by Rituals or from the channel Rituals by Michaela. And we work together a lot behind the scenes. We are friends. We've been friends for a number of years. We came together after Michaela reached out to me for an Akashic reading when she watched the Mintaka Starseed video on my old channel, To Kitty and Beyond. And we've been friends ever since. Now we are working together on uncovering a lot of different patterns within ourselves and working with clients. Michaela is a hypnotherapist, and as you guys know, I'm a reader, a psychic, and an energy healer and activator. So we decided that we're going to come together today and discuss a topic that's really important and that came up in one of our sessions behind the scenes, and to talk about this topic so that hopefully we can help you guys to understand what's going on and that we can understand it better ourselves as well. So, we are going to be talking about fear of the future today and how that can impact the present moment, your ability to manifest, what you're creating in the future, and basically like your sense of security, your access to your intuition, literally all of that. And this came about in a session that Michaela and I had. Was it yesterday or the day before?
It was 2 days ago. It
2 days
was
ago.
my probably, like, 10th time asking the same question to Siobhan when she's so loving and patient and always wants to answer my questions, but something me and Siobhan have been working on is my ability to trust myself and to strengthen my own intuition, my own psychic abilities, and I found that I was getting an answer to this question that was, like, really scary for me. The question was in regards to my financial security, how I meant to move forward on my own channel and my career, and I had been receiving guidance for quite a long time as to what I was meant to do, and honestly, I just wanna be, like, really specific and give details because I am an open book about what's going on in my life, and I think it's helpful when we can learn more about each other that way. So, Siobhan and I want to really share like the actual discussions we have in private. My intention is always to help people feel a little bit less alone. So, I have actually been guided to share something that I thought I was going to sell for free. And that has been scaring me because I have so much conditioning around, especially like running a business, how you're supposed to run a business and how you're supposed to market and sell things. And so when this guidance came through, I was like, well, how am I going to make money? Like, how am I going to be able to take care of myself? And I've been scared and frozen to take action on that because every time I go to follow my heart and put something out there for free, I get afraid that I'm not gonna be able to sustain myself. And so I just am stuck in this place. So I was asking Siobhan to give me a reading on finances, career, money, and the guidance that came through was super confusing. Like nothing. I don't. What was coming? What were some of the things that were coming through?
Like, okay, so when I tune into spirit, sometimes things are very clear and it's like, this is the message. They'll show me an image or they'll give me a feeling or they'll tell me a phrase and I'll hear it like verbatim. And when I was tuning in to try and get an answer on that question, it was just like chaos. It was like a chaos soup. And I was like, what, where is the information? What, this makes no sense. And everything, I felt disjointed. I felt confused and like my head was kind of spinning. And then you were confused. And we were both like, okay, what the hell, spirit? Like, what is the answer here? What are you trying to tell us? And then I sat there for a second and I was like, wait, that's the message, is that we're not supposed to be asking about this because it's just leading to more confusion. The answer
Mhm.
is in the now, not in the future or not into this projection. And we both just like sat with that for a second and it felt intuitively right. Like both of us are really super intuitive. We trust ourselves. We've been working on that together and separately. And it's like we know how to do that now pretty well. So it was like, okay, yeah, that's the answer. The answer is not in the answer. The answer is in the way the answer was presenting itself to us. So, hey, Kevin, welcome. Just seeing people jumping into the chat now.
Kevin.
Love my shirt. Yeah, it's Pride Week, so I figured I'd wear my Pride shirt. Love is a human right. So
It is.
it is, and
Yeah.
fear is something that shouldn't be. it shouldn't be as prevalent as it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like in that moment when all of the answers were so unclear, it was another like, I don't know if we like to use the word test, but I've been
Yeah.
going through it when it comes to learning how to trust myself. I feel like it's been really challenging for me to listen to my own inner guidance because I get a lot of, like, mixed messages sometimes. It can feel very confusing. So, working with Siobhan, it's been this balance of her helping me and giving me guidance, but also I told her this session felt like we were, like, taking the training wheels off my bike because when she was telling me all of these things that were really confusing and making it even scarier for me in a way, it was pushing me to remember that I actually already received the guidance on this. And the reason why I'm so confused in this moment isn't because I need more reassurance about my future, isn't because I need more messages, more cards being pulled, whatever it is. It's because I need to remember that initial message that I got and how even though it feels scary in my mind, it felt right in my soul. And so that was me kind of strengthening my ability to stop looking for answers outside of me and starting to just go back to that action that I was already told to take. Now the problem is that I don't know if that action is going to work, but what we realized is that doesn't matter. It is going to lead me to where I want to be. It might not work in the way that my mind thinks that it should work, but that is my next step out the way that, my ego, my mind thinks that it should.
They want us to be able to get there for ourselves. They want us to be able to develop the skills so that we're not dependent, because that's just what healthy, loving relationships do, right? Like, not
Yeah.
keep you dependent on something outside of yourself. And so that's what kind of like spurred this conversation with Michaela and I diving into, okay, so if that's what's going on here, what are we needing to learn about this? And we're needing to learn to trust and be in the present moment and not attach to the future and the need to know what's in the future. And then I was thinking to myself how a lot of the readings I do here on the channel are future focused. And I was like, Spirit, like what's the deal with that? Is that okay to do? And they were like, yes, if it's providing guidance or if it's providing the hope that's necessary. But it's like I think we as humans, we just get so attached. We get so attached to the future and to the potentials and to the insecurity in the now, and then we lose touch with the present moment's ability to be able to manifest and to take control. And like, even if we just take manifestation completely off the table and we just look at that in terms of like, okay, the present moment is literally the only place that I can take action. I think that's really important, because if we are not focusing on the present, focusing on what we're feeling, focusing on what the intuitive guidance is that we're actually receiving in the now, focusing on what we can actually do about that and problem solving in the now, then what we're doing is kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. And there's going to be that backfire effect when we want to actually see something unfold in the future. So it's not to say that we completely ignore the future and only live in the now. There's a certain level of human things that we need to do to prepare ourselves, but it's this attachment is kind of like at the core of what we wanted to get to and talk about today. And I think it's important that we open up this discussion. So feel free to comment in the chat about how you guys are dealing with or processing attachment to the future, future timelines, future things you're manifesting, fear of the future or upcoming unknowns, because I think that's the whole reason why we attach to the future in the first place, is because it's an unknown.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I was in this place of panic every single time I tried to go into the present moment. It was this voice in my head that was saying, well, you might as well give up now because we don't know that this is going to work. You might as well not even start trying because if you try and you fail, that's really scary. And making up all these reasons as to why moving forward was not the right decision. And I needed to either look outside of me for more confirmation or just not try at all and just give up. And those were the two places within me that were kind of taking over and clouding that intuitive guidance that I was receiving. And it can be really challenging to try to break out of that.
Yeah, exactly. like being in those fear loops of projection into the unknown, or fear loops of projection into whether the future is secure. And even
Yeah.
if we zoom out and we look at this, like, yes, we all experience this on a personal level, but I'm having this sort of hit come through right now as we're talking about this, about, oh, this actually applies to humanity at like a much
Yeah.
larger scale. If we look at like the global crises that are going on economically, that are going on socially, politically, and more importantly, like with the world, the climate, the actual physical planet. It's like all of these things are a cause for concern, and so we project into the future these fears or these unknowns. But what that does is destabilizes us in the present, and then we're unable or we feel paralyzed to take
Yeah.
action. And I think this is where we need to shift things. We need to empower ourselves in the now, just like Eckhart Tolle said, the power of now, to be able to use this moment, which is the locus or the focus point, focal point of our free will and our ability to exert that to create. So this is what we're going to be talking about today, discussing more of, and we are also going to be having an upcoming event, and we will leave the information that in the description box below. So if you guys want to check out the date of the event and what it's going to entail, Michaela has beautifully created a lovely sign up for that on her website, Rituals by Michaela. And you can find more of the information there. We're going to be doing a collaborative healing session, group session live. So, Michaela doing hypnotherapy and me doing a discussion, breakdown, activation, and energy healing for participants who are drawn to this kind of thing that we're doing here. So, let's see what you guys are saying in the comments.
I also wanted to add, my website is michaelamariner.com, and I think you
Oh,
put it
sorry.
in the description of this live. So I think
Yeah.
the did you put the link there?
I
Okay.
put the link in the description. Yeah, so if you just want to click that link, yeah, that's going to be there, and you'll get the information about it. When are we doing it again? I would check my
July 7th.
July
Yeah,
7th. There we go.
the
Thank
Sunday.
you.
Mhm.
So Valerie E says this has been coming up a lot for me lately, an interesting contrast of being really anxious and worrying about the future. And then profound moments, gifts of peace and presence. Yeah, I think that there's like this almost rapid cycling of projecting into that fear of the unknown, into that potential, like it's almost like catastrophizing, and we're kind of seeing that contrast. And I talked about this in one of my previous videos, but I think it was the timeline one, where we were talking about contrast and how sometimes we actually need that to be able to see what doesn't feel good or what we don't want to create more of. So, but we don't want to get looped into those feedback loops of fear. We don't want to get looped into that thought process, because then that's where our free will is being utilized, and we don't want to create that. So, being in that presence, being in that peace, being anchored in the now, and just kind of like throwing your hands up and being like, all right, whatever happens, first of all, I can handle it. Second of all, I know I'm guided. And third of all, it's all going to point me in the direction I need to go. Even if I don't understand it in the moment, or what that's going to look like in the future projection of my timeline, I will be able to use that effectively. I will be able to grow from that. I will be able to evolve from that. So it's like trust, you know? Like,
Yeah.
we gotta have trust. Yeah.
And, too, something that I've noticed since doing a lot of deeper healing work, I think a lot of this has to do with the level of safety that we
Yeah.
have within ourselves to be able to take those actions and potentially fail and know that we're still gonna be there for ourselves and care for ourselves and love ourselves, because that is truly what we're afraid of, is that if we mess up, if we fail, we're not gonna receive love, we're not gonna survive, we're not gonna be accepted. And so as
Yeah.
we learn to give that to ourselves, it does create that safety to listen to the guidance you're getting in the present moment. But also, what I've noticed with the ups and downs that you're mentioning, Valerie, it's like sometimes I'll be in a place where I'm feeling really connected to myself and really empowered and ready to take that action. But I think when we create a certain level of safety within ourselves, it does create space for fears and anxiety and emotions we've suppressed in the past to start coming up again, because we have the container and the safety within ourselves to feel it. And so it can feel like we're backtracking when we create that safety for ourselves, but really it's just slowly but surely you're moving old energies, fears, anxieties out of the body, and you're facing them to be able to release them. So you are moving forward, even if it feels like a lot of ups and downs. I know I personally, when I was having this session with Siobhan this week, I was in a down moment. I was in a moment where I couldn't see past my fears. I couldn't see past my need for somebody to tell me I'm going to be safe. The choices I'm making are the right choices, because I was always needing that as a child, for somebody to guide me and show me the way. And so there's still a part of me that is craving that. But I did notice that, like, those fears were really taking over and convincing me, like, I was not making progress. I was in a really bad place. Like, I had messed everything up. So in those low moments, it is really easy to forget the journey that you're on.
Yeah, because the way that spirit has showed it to me is like when we go into fear, we're in fight or flight, our nervous system is activated. It's like everything kind of like condenses. And so we're looking at ourselves, our experience, our life through a pinhole. And we're not seeing the full truth. We're not accessing the full knowing. We're not able to again use our free will because we've kind of collapsed in on ourselves in a sense. And when spirit came through with all that confusing gobbledygook, it was like, okay, so this is also tapping into the energy of the fear itself rather than the clarity. And I was like, wow, so really what's being needed here is for me to not give you any guidance at all because you already have it. And for me to even just confirm or mirror that back to you was doing a disservice in that moment, which is not always the case, but in that moment it was, where you needed to really be in this state of knowing that what you had previously intuited and what you had felt, even though in the moment that's not what was coming through or that's not the experience you were having because of the fear, that was still, that the faith was still true, or that the guidance was still true, that your intuition was still right, even if in the moment there was doubt.
Yes, absolutely. Seems like a lot of you guys can really relate to that feeling of panic that
Yeah.
comes over you.
And it's like, well, the more that we clarify within ourselves, the more we get connected to ourselves, the more, like you said, Michaela, that those shadows, the shadows come up, the fears come up, and we're faced more directly with them, which can be a good thing because if you can see it, then you can do something about it. So
Yeah.
that's where I think again we need to circle back to the present moment and hit it where we can actually hit it, which is in the
Mhm.
present. But it's still, it can feel dissuading to have that disharmony come up time and time again and have to continually, I'm hearing rehabilitate. You got to like rehabilitate your mind and the way that it thinks and processes information. And that translates to the nervous system, and that translates to our ability to express ourselves at soul level. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's all connected.
Siobhan, I'm curious as to what you feel when you feel a full yes in your body to doing something.
Yeah, when I get a full yes, it's like everything just opens. It's like expanded energy. I don't, that's the best way I can describe it. Like my body feels more open, my stomach feels less tense. It's like the opposite of constriction. Everything just kind of relaxes, and my heart, my chest opens up. I have this sort of sense of knowing, even if my human mind is like, but how? Or, oh my God, but what about this? Or my past experiences said the opposite. It's this very sort of tranquil state of sureness. It's like, no, I just know this. And even though the doubt program still runs, it's like, no, but I know this.
Yeah. Yeah, I was curious because I feel like the message that I got around sharing what I thought I was gonna sell for free, that was like that's the feeling that I had, right? And it was instant, it came through right away, and then immediately my mind was like, "How is that gonna work?" And I and I understand that, right? It's it makes sense, but, I was curious if you think that in particular for, you know, the community who is awakening and maybe considers themselves to be like a light worker or someone who's just meant to spread love and help to heal humanity in some way. Do you feel like that fear programming comes in faster because of it? I would love to just hear your thoughts on that because I felt like what I was wanting to do was essentially change the way that things are done in the healing community where I think a lot of coaches have been like bottling up love and healing and selling it. And I
Yeah.
understand why, because of course we need to take care of ourselves and we don't want to burn out. But I was getting the message that a lot of that information is meant to be out there for free. And the fear around that has been really, really strong and paralyzing to
Yeah.
take that action. So I'm curious as to why you think that is.
Well, I think that okay, this kind of stems back. So in comparison to, let's say, like the general population or the world of individuals who are not aware of themselves as a soul, who don't have any conscious, you know, sort of sense of purpose in that way to express themselves as a soul or to do this kind of work, I think they still experience the same level of fear. Like I've been there, you've been there, we've all been there. We were all not awakened and then awakened. So we have that ability to see, okay, yeah, it was still there. But I think it becomes more prevalent or you just notice it more, the more sensitive you become. And that's where I think the awakening process really highlights this and shoves it down your throat and like really like puts it right in your face because you're first of all becoming more sensitive. And second of all, you're stepping up into more vulnerable positions. And this is something that I've talked about on, I did a reading on healing the witch wound, the persecution imprint. This kind of thing can be part of that as well. You know, we can go into past life stuff around where we've been persecuted for sharing our truth or speaking to things that we're passionate about or this purpose of our soul and doing things in a way that kind of challenges the status quo, even if it's to promote love. You know, there's a lot of world leaders who have promoted love and gotten killed for it. So it's this type of thing I think that's really sort of inlaid into the DNA of those past experiences, not just of ourselves or our soul, but the humans. Like we've all seen this go down and we've felt it, and so there can be resistance to that as well. Like, okay, you're stepping into this role of providing this free content because that's what your inner guidance is guiding you to do, that's what you feel is right, and it feels vulnerable to do that. It feels vulnerable to step out of line, to be a pioneer in any way, shape, or form, even if it's just in your own life and changing the way you're doing something. So we do kind of as awakened aware beings, we have to face those scary things and we have to move through them, and faith is the life raft that gets us through the swamp of fear. So the more we can have that faith in ourselves, trusting what we're receiving intuitively, trusting that even if it doesn't go perfectly, there's going to be an opportunity for growth in that, there's going to be an opportunity to learn, to adjust, and there's a reason for that. So it's not saying that if you trust yourself and your intuition and the guidance you're getting that everything's going to be perfect and smooth sailing. No, not my experience. It's actually kind of like the opposite. Things will line up, but they won't always be exactly how your ego wants it, but it will be exactly what you need at soul
Yeah.
level. And that will help you grow and that will help you evolve and get better as you go. So I think that being able to face our fears in this way and to change the way that we operate is going to be so huge. It's going to change the way that, I mean, even if we go into like the financial structures, capitalism, ugh, I like, should we even go down that rabbit hole? I don't know. But yeah, it's like, it's we need a new foundational structure. And I love that, Michaela, your idea is like, okay, well, I just want to give this away for free. I want to not gatekeep love. Now, we do have to price out and make sure that we are accounting for the direct help that we're giving so that the energy doesn't become imbalanced, so that the distribution of give and receive is not skewed. But when it comes to the information itself, giving it away for free is the most empowering thing because it feels good for you and it feels good for the person receiving it. And then if they need additional support or structure or one-on-one or group help, then there will be the additional resource exchange, energy
Yeah.
exchange. So
Yeah, the message that came through too, I remember when I was first sharing this with you, is that there's a difference between giving something away for free when you don't see the value in it and you're
yeah,
just wanting to just give, 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 to know that what you're doing is valuable and like get that feedback from people, and maybe you don't think your services are worth anything, versus having it come from already an abundant place within you to want to share from that place of overflow. And I think that's what I'm still
yeah,
learning how to do, is to have this come from an overflow of energy within me. And yeah, I'm still learning, and like this is definitely going to be one of those things where it's like maybe I try it and I do get burnt out a little and I have to learn how to conserve my energy in certain ways. But it's been really helpful for me, even that like wonky session we had where I wasn't getting guidance, to always come back to that feeling that I was asking you about, that heart opening feeling, that feeling of a full yes, because
mhm,
that, amongst all the fear, it's like the little light at the end
yeah,
of the tunnel. Just follow that, and like the fear is going to be there and things might not go perfectly the way that my ego wants them to, but if I just keep following that light and keep following that feeling, eventually I'll understand why I was led that way.
yeah, exactly. And like you've seen that play out before. Like we've been working together for a long time, and you went through what I call the gauntlet. The
Yes.
gauntlet. It's not easy. That's where kind of like you're tested. Spirit tests you, or I should say, like, spirit is not anything outside of you. It's not something outside pushing and testing and prodding and poking. No, it's you, yourself, your expanded self wanting to help to kind of toughen you up in terms of your resolve to persevere through doubt, through fear, through the scarcity mindset or whatever is being triggered. And so having to confront some of these old ways of being and show up differently and trust your intuition and see how that actually plays out physically and have the evidence of that to then be like a pinpoint that you can reference back to later in time to help to build that trust in yourself and in your intuition is so so helpful. And Michaela got through that gauntlet period, and it was
I
intense.
made it.
But you
Yeah.
did it. So it doesn't mean the tests don't go away, but you just get better at it the more you kind of like level up, you know?
But you also could get worse at it if you go back to always seeking that external validation and guidance, which is what I found myself naturally wanting to do, was like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I've learned how to trust my intuition now, but like Siobhan's more seasoned than me in this, so let me just like double check with her and confirm.
Yeah.
And
And I
yeah,
get
I've
told no a lot to tell people.
yeah.
Like I have people email and reaching out to me for guidance, and I'll have spirit be like, no, you can't give, you
Yeah,
want to give them guidance, you want to help, but you can't, because it's like I have to know when to give and when not to, whether it's helpful or not. It's
yeah.
kind of the same thing as like when a parent wants to prevent a child from having to go through some kind of discomfort, so they want to do it for them or they want to step in and help, but to do that it would be a disservice because then the child wouldn't learn how to do. And spirit does that with me too. Like I'm not saying that I'm like the parent of all parents. Like no, I'm still a child in many ways, and spirit has to like tell me when they're stepping back, and I have to do this myself and figure it
Mhm.
out. And then that helps me in the long run. It helps to combat some of that fear because you get through the times that you were really afraid of and you doubted yourself, and you start to see how things actually work when
Yeah,
you choose actively through your free will to trust and have faith, because that is an action. It's not a passive role that we play when it comes to faith. It is a choice and it is an action, and that will influence the results because that's what creates the outcomes in the future is the
yeah,
actions we take in the now.
yeah, absolutely.
So that's what we're going to be focusing on in the upcoming event, is how to help you activate that within yourself so that you feel confident in the now to be able to trust the guidance you receive, not from outside of you, but from within you, how to tap into that in the first place and how to use that to best effect.
Yeah.
Let's
Do you
see.
wanna look at some of these comments really quick, and then
Yeah,
we can get into There was
Just
something that also came through in our session that, I think would be really helpful to share specifically around money, and I think that's a big one for a lot of us when it comes
yeah.
to fear of the future. So I wanna share what came through for me, but I also wanna make sure that we didn't miss any questions.
Yeah. Leanna says, "Not only does being awake make you more self-aware, it makes you wanna heal more than anything else." Yeah, 'cause you become hyper aware of where things are misaligned, and you're like, "Oh, I need to deal with this and deal with this." But that's another thing, this is kind of a side note, it's not really on this topic, but Spirit was telling me about getting, like, hyper fixated on healing and constantly looking for something to heal and how addictive
Yeah.
that can become and counterproductive.
Part of perfectionism there too can
Perfectionism.
show up where it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm so aware of all the things that I could heal, all the things that I could change, and I just wanna be this perfectly healed human," and
Yeah.
yeah, it can really take over. I was talking to, my boyfriend last night about I've been doing a lot of work with self-love and healing through some habits that I've really struggled with for quite a while, and you know, I was journaling about it one day and I was talking about the difference between discipline and devotion and how
Oh.
I hate the word discipline because to me, discipline feels like if I don't do this perfectly, then I'm bad. I've messed up.
Mm.
I'm wrong. I have to stick to this mind dominated regimen or, you know, I consider this habit to make me lazy or stupid or bad. And so if I don't quit this perfectly, if I don't stick to it, then, you know, I've messed up. I'm a failure. To me, devotion is very like heart centered and it's coming from a place of, I'm doing this because I care for myself. I'm doing this because this is something ultimately that I really want for myself. And devotion to me isn't rooted in perfectionism, it's rooted in care for yourself
I
and or
love
care
that.
for another person.
Love
And
that.
that really has helped me with some of the things that I like could not quit for the longest time. And I've made a lot of progress since reframing it because the way that I've approached certain habits, things that I don't want to eat or consume, especially like that's been a big one for me. I tell myself I can have it and I'll still love myself, but I want to feel good more than I want to, like, soothe this one part of me right now with this need, and how can I bring more love and compassion to myself as we choose this other path together, but it's not like, "Oh, no, it's out of the question. We can't eat that food. We can't have coffee today. We can't do this." It's more of a conversation with myself, which you helped me to learn, Siobhan, is, like, this style of parenting the self that is compassionate, but also devoted to this positive outcome and growth.
That's exactly as soon as you started talking about it, I was like, "Oh, this feels very much like the authoritarian, authoritative
Yeah.
conversation we
Uh-huh.
had." Yeah, because I love that you've differentiated devotion and discipline, because the devotion feels authoritative, and the discipline can feel authoritarian, and it's like
Yeah.
control versus support.
Yeah, and support like, devotion leads to freedom.
Yeah.
Discipline leads to more discipline, like, you just have to stay in the willpower, and you're right, discipline is way too serious, like, I
Yeah,
want
it's
to
way too serious.
I want to live a free life where it's heart-led, like, I'm doing this because I wanna feel good. I'm doing this
Yeah.
because I deserve to feel good, and yeah, and I honestly forget how I got to talking about this right now, but I just that was, like, such a huge breakthrough for me. I think we were talking about healing and how you can get so perfectionistic with it. Be devoted to your healing. Don't be, like, completely disciplined with having to do it every single day or making that the main focus of your life because then you'll forget to live.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Stream of consciousness. This is what this live is, just stream of consciousness. But this is and by the way, are you guys open to me and McKay? I mean, we're gonna do it anyway, but I just kind of want to get feedback. We're gonna do it because we want to do it. But like me and Michaela have been talking about doing more live streams where we just kind of like chat and connect with each other, because we meet, like Michaela and I meet behind the scenes on Zoom like once or twice a week usually. And sometimes it's just for hangouts or chats. Sometimes it's for sessions and work, and we do exchanges of hypnotherapy and like guidance from spirit and stuff like that. But we were like, a lot of what we talk about helps us to understand these really important concepts, and the way that we communicate with each other, it brings us a lot of clarity. And I was just thinking to myself, like, we should be recording this, or we should be sharing this, or we should be like making this public, because it's just you and I vibing and like chatting, but it helps us to get clarity. And if that can help other people in the process, that's a win-win-win. And y'all know when I say win-win-win, it's alignment. So
Oh, thank you guys. I'm glad you're loving it. And yeah, we're gonna do it anyway. So,
yeah, we're gonna do it
um,
anyway. So we're gonna have
you
fun with
guys,
it, and it should be playful too, you know, like that's part of the devotion, is that we're very devoted to this cause, we're devoted to each other, we're devoted to this healing journey that we're on, devoted to intuition, all of that. So yeah, I think it's important that we make it an open topic, open discussion, you know, however it's gonna be helpful.
yeah.
Dude, it's fun for you. Yeah, exactly. It's fun.
It is. And
It's
it's
fun.
also it's I find it really fun and supportive to me to know when you guys are also, like, moving through some of the same things. I
Yeah.
think something that I also had noticed when I was, like, in the beginning stages of my healing journey, just, like, wanting to listen to all of these people talk about what they did, but they felt so far removed from the
Mm,
experience that sometimes what they were sharing wasn't relatable, and it gave me this, I would say, false belief that you get to a point where finally, like, you're completely healed one
yeah.
day and you can teach from this place of, "Oh, I'm above you." I feel that it's actually so much more supportive to know that we're all on this journey together. And,
Yeah.
Siobhan has been on the journey longer than me, and she's able to provide me with insights. But, as you've seen in our sessions, there's sometimes where Siobhan tells me something that's going on for her. And even though
Yep.
I'm newer on this path, I'm able to provide her with insight. So
Yep.
I think it's really important for us to feel like we're all in this together, and that one of us isn't this guru sharing all the
No.
answers. Like, we all have so much to share with each other.
Yeah, I really benefit from the exchanges, because we're all just human. We're all having this experience. We're all just trying to figure it out. Nobody knows what they're doing. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody has all the answers. And it's freaking scary. Like, it's scary to not know, and it's scary to be in this physical third dimensional reality with all the unknowns and all of the chaos. But it's like, if we do it together and we do it in a way that's fun, then it can be a little bit easier. It can take some of the edge off, you know, and maybe we'll get to some clarity, and maybe we'll provide help to some people that need it. And we'll help. We'll be evolving and helping ourselves at the same time. So it's a win-win-win, you know. So yeah,
Absolutely.
good stuff.
So, yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge I was just removing some not
Oh,
fun
thank you,
comments.
Michaela.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at that. I'm not great at like the tech stuff and like monitoring the chat. Michaela is my like, this is one of the areas that I struggle with and I have fear around, is like tech stuff. And so I always turn to Michaela. I'm like, help me figure this out. And she does
Yeah.
such a beautiful job. Like, Michaela designed the
Oh,
thumbnail and all of it. It's so pretty. I love it.
thank you.
Yeah, I love it.
So, do you wanna get into really, like, how to start I know we've talked about in personal experience, like, where the fear of the future comes from and all of
Mm,
that. I wanted to dive into my example about money because I really do feel
right.
like this was a breakthrough for me. So my fear of the future is about not being able to support myself, not being able to take care of myself, and I know that's a pretty common fear that drives a lot of us to
Yep.
look for outside confirmation of what we should be doing, look for people who have succeeded in what they've done in their lives and try to, like, copy somebody else or get advice from somebody else who has succeeded. I have realized on that path that nothing has made me more stuck or confused than trying to listen to the way that somebody else has operated in their life, if that way doesn't feel exciting and expansive to me.
Yep.
Of course, you can, like, take inspiration from people, and again, checking in for that heart opening feeling that Siobhan described when she feels a full yes. But I think the most supportive thing is to turn your blinders on to what everybody else is doing and really listen to yourself.
Yeah.
And for me, I have been discovering a very feminine approach to operating in business that everything in my head is like, this is not going to work. You need to have all of this structure and strategy and organization. And I'm not saying that there isn't a balance that's needed, but I'm being really guided to listen to this feminine approach and to really question a lot of my beliefs on this narrative that you have to work really hard to earn money. I think so many of us are trying to rewire this belief system and start to open ourselves up to something that's filled with more ease, more receptivity, more expansion and excitement in what we're doing, and not feeling like we have to give so much of ourselves over in order to be worthy of abundance, in order to be worthy of being able to take care of ourselves. And something that Siobhan had said when she was getting some messages about my situation, I noticed that this rang true for me, not in a way that made me happy that it rang true for me, but a way that made me aware, oh, this is truth.
Yeah.
Siobhan said, there's more going out than there is coming in. And that currently is true about my finances to an extent, but more so my energy.
Yeah,
And I
energy.
realized that there's more of my energy that is going out, trying to create, trying to do more, trying to be more. And there's a part of me that is starved for that energy to be given to me again.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've also intuitively known for a while that I've needed to do. But I feel like for any of you who are being called to a more feminine approach to money or building a business or just life in general, that I personally feel that is the answer for me, is to have more energy going in,
Yeah.
going towards me, going towards taking care of me than putting all of my energy outward, trying to create, and really waiting until that energy feels so filled up inside of me before I start to go and put all of this stuff out for free that I'm wanting to do. So what that looks like for me is the hardest thing for me to do,
Mm.
which is to just be with myself. And I was writing down examples of what energy pouring into me looks like. And it's in those moments where I maybe end a day of working with clients where I would go to put on a podcast and, or listen to a tarot reading or watch a show or go on my phone, maybe even call someone. That is all energy going out. Instead of doing that, maybe I cook my dinner without a podcast on and I'm having an internal conversation with myself. Maybe I move my body without going to a class or watching a video, but just move it the way my body's wanting me to move. Maybe I just sit in stillness with myself and have a conversation. It doesn't have to be this like formal meditation or anything, but I'm just with myself. And so those are the things that I feel really called to do. They are the things that are hardest for me to do, but I have a feeling that that is going to be directly reflected in, my financial situation and my ability to have the energy to create. And I wanted to share that because sometimes I hear messages like this and don't internalize them.
Mm.
And this time I felt like that message came through and I really heard it. And I feel so clear that that's really what will support me the most with this.
Yeah, that's the cue with that present moment and getting clear on that intuitive hit is that sometimes if we're not centered in the present, we're going to get that guidance or that information coming through, but we may not necessarily feel it and attune to it and really acknowledge that as our truth and what we need to do. And sometimes that's why spirit will kind of like beat you over the head with a message. If you don't get it the first time, they'll just bring it through another time until it really sinks in. But it was funny because when we pulled some cards, we don't always do that, but we did feel called to it that day. And there was these feminine cycle cards that were coming out. So it's talking about getting into the rhythms and flows, ebbing and flowing with your energy, not giving or overextending yourself when you didn't have, like not pouring from an empty cup, basically. And that directly correlates to our vital force energy and to money, because money is the value of the physical 3D realm and vital force energy is the value of the spirit realm. So they correlate, they cross over. And yeah, you being able to identify those patterns within yourself and tune into that truth and then take action in the present moment to address those things and slow down and be present with yourself. It's the uncomfortable thing to do, but it actually creates that stability and security, which then benefits the future outcomes.
Mhm.
So it's this sort of paradox of like, we need to go against what it is that we would normally do in that state of like compensating for the fear, and
Yeah.
instead tune into what feels a little uncomfortable, but what's actually what we really need at that core level.
Yeah. And I think that's honestly the first step when you have that fear of the future coming up. At least for me, it's been learning how to be with myself in the present
Yeah.
because, like you shared in the beginning, that's truly the only place where you have any power.
Yeah.
That's truly the only place where you have free will
Hmm.
to make a decision that yes, will affect your future, but it's not about that
Yeah.
really. It's about how you feel in that moment, making that decision and what that's doing for you. And so for me, in those moments where I feel called to more stillness and time with myself or just giving that energy to myself, it's because I'm learning how to create a relationship with myself, how to feel safe in my own body, in my own being, and that in turn is helping me to listen to my guidance more clearly instead of constantly needing something outside of me to show me where to go. And I want to share a little bit like about the way that I work through that discomfort is again with that practice of devotion versus discipline where it's like I'm talking to myself, Michaela, I know this is uncomfortable for you right now. And I
Mm.
know you want to go on your phone, you want to distract yourself, and just becoming very aware as to why I want to do that and having so much compassion for myself instead of being like, nope, we're not going on our phone right now. Like, that's bad. You would have messed up if you had done that,
Mm.
and like putting this decision on a pedestal and making it like, a perfectionistic thing. I'm really being very careful with myself when I notice that I have that pull to distract myself or dissociate or disconnect from myself, of just talking to myself about it and
Yeah.
being aware and telling myself, maybe let's start with 5 minutes of just being connecting with myself. And then we can go and do what we normally do and slowly implementing that to create safety.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it's the recentering into the present moment. It's that mindfulness, it's that self-awareness and the radical compassionate perspective and approach that really shifts your experience subjectively, and then by extension your connection to that intuitive knowing or that feeling sense, and then the actions that you're going to take in accordance with that. It's like fear wants to sink its claws into you in the present by worrying about what's to come, or by worrying about the unknowns, or by worrying about what you're not doing, or even it can even attach to the past about like, oh, there's this pattern that I still haven't dealt with, or there's this thing that's coming up from the past, I don't want that to repeat. But again, that's even projection into the future. So it's like fear wants to sink its claws in past, present, and future, but the only place that we actually have control is in the now. And that's why that mindfulness is so, like, that's the key. That's what breaks through, because if you're not aware of what's going on there and you just go into autopilot and you start beating yourself up, or you start allowing the fear to win, then you're going to end up creating that. So we need to be, and that's why you and I talk about this and we work through this together and with ourselves, is to be very connected internally and to have that compassionate approach, because it helps us to combat the fear,
Yeah.
and that's so important.
It is because otherwise I was hearing the words like you're a slave to the fear.
Yeah, you
That
end up becoming
fear
that.
yeah, that fear owns every decision that you make and is the catalyst behind everything that you do, and it's really easy to unconsciously fall into that trap. And yeah, that's why it can feel so hard to break yourself free
Yeah.
because so many of us were conditioned to live our lives making decisions that will avoid failure, going to
Hmm.
school because not because you're excited to do it, but because that is the certain path to get you to a place of stability, and we have that conditioning very deep within us, and it does feel, for me, very unconscious at times.
Yeah. Yeah, that making the unconscious conscious is the only way to grow and to
Mm.
evolve. It's painful. That's the shadow work side of things. But it's again through the present moment focus that we're able to connect and understand these things about ourselves, to be able to move through them and to not bypass. Like that's also important. We need to not bypass these things. We need to feel them. We need to understand them, and then we can move through them. And with that, we get more confident in ourselves. We build that self-esteem, self-worth through the compassion, through that understanding. That helps combat the fear as well. It's like the more stable your base is, the less susceptible you are to getting pushed off balance by fear coming in. And so it's kind of like a fighter. You've got to have a really stable base. You've got to have firm footing on the ground, and you've got to punch fear in the face with both fists, because it's going to keep coming at you, and you have to be relentless and not give up. And that's actually something Spirit's been teaching me the past little while. It's been all these messages about like perseverance and personal power and strength and autonomy, not backing down. And the fear is insidious. It is insidious. It wants to get at you, and it digs at you in these little unsuspecting ways where it's just like a little tiny thought and it seems rational, but it blows up into something much, much worse. And then it affects the way that you move in life and the way that you act and what you believe about yourself and the world. And so Spirit has been teaching me this process of like punch fear in the face with both hands, because that's where the power comes back. It's like I am not going to be fear's slave. I am not going to be like in the devil card, letting fear have power over me. That's a conscious choice, but it doesn't feel like it's intentional. And being able to say, I'm never going to give up, and I'm going to keep fighting, and I'm going to keep trusting, because that, again, that's a choice, that's an action. I'm going to have faith, even though I don't have all the answers. I'm going to learn as I go. And it might not necessarily get easier, but I will get better. And that is something that I think we can all benefit from in this crazy thing called life, you know? So
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
yeah. So that's kinda what we wanted to talk about today. Was there anything else that you wanted to go into, Michaela?
Um, when you were talking, I just had a question come up around where certain fears come from. And because I think that sometimes fear can be a part of us that is needing us to nurture it and love
Yeah.
it. And then sometimes fear does need to just be like punched in the face. It's not, it's like not anything really that you need to like soothe and listen to. So
Yeah.
how would you discern between the two?
Oh, so that's a big thing, right? Like discernment and walking the middle path. Like literally everything is dualistic in nature in this reality, and so it can be hard to discern. There is no one shot, one true answer. It's very subjective. It's very internal. It's very process oriented, and you need to learn discernment. That's again where intuition comes into things. But for me, the way it presents is like, okay, if it's a personal fear, like if it's a fear of something that I've experienced in the past and it's a trauma, or there's a wound around that, or there's a belief around that that is something that is mine or that I own in that way, then I can bring that part of me up and I'll do some shadow work with that part of myself. Maybe it's a child part of myself, past part of myself, or even like a rejected shadow part of myself, like some kind of boogeyman in my subconscious that I need to actually invite in to have a tea party with them, sit down, get to know them, understand what's going on, what they need, how I can benefit them, how they can benefit me through this integration process. Other times, the fear's not coming from the call's not coming from inside the house, it's coming from outside the house. And scream reference, it's interesting that that's coming up, because that's literally like fear. And sometimes the fear is not coming from inside, it's coming from the outside, and but it feels like it's coming from the inside. It feels like it's you. It's in your own inner voice. It's that same monologue, and it could be attached to things that you've experienced in the past. But if you've dealt with that shadow part and you've integrated that, and you can't find anything else that's connected to it, then it's time to punch fear in the face, because it's just going to keep coming at you. And the way to overcome it is to not give up, to not relent, to just keep persisting, be tenacious about overcoming that fear and doing the hard things physically in your reality that will help to get you through that fear. You kind of have to push through. But it's like, again, it's such a nuanced thing that
Yeah.
to say that you have to do that every time would be incorrect. And I can't tell someone how and when to address the fear because it's, again, it's such an individual process. I can only do that for myself. But hopefully by talking about this, we can open up this topic and this understanding so that there's a little bit more introspection on what is actually going on with that fear and how to discern.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a good explanation of it, and it gives room for, those of you who are watching right now, if you have a fear that keeps showing up, I think the point is just to start to ask yourself where it's coming from and just
Yeah.
ask yourself more questions about it. Try to get to the root, and maybe there will be a past memory or a past version of yourself that does come up and needs your love, or maybe it's like not quite making sense as to where this is coming from, or you feel like you've already processed the emotion around it, you're holding yourself and it's still present, and maybe it's something that you do need to kind of look at and say, no, I'm not
Yeah.
going to listen to this anymore. But I think it's the most important thing is facing it and
Yeah.
looking at it and being willing to ask yourself where it's coming from instead of just being so afraid of it that you just like keep slapping it away without being willing to look at it. And I think that's something that I did for a while because I was so afraid to have any negative thoughts. I was so afraid to lower my vibration. And in that process, I was just stuck. So
Yeah.
we find our power often by actually being willing to look at things for what they are and ask ourselves more questions about it.
I just gotta plug in my phone. There we go. Yeah, and that's a really good point too, is like that fear needs to be faced. And the reason why is because even like at a neurological level in the brain, if we avoid something that we fear, we're actually just confirming that fear. And then it can exacerbate it. And I'll give an example. I've never had any issue with driving. I've never had any major activations. Ooh, I meant to say accidents. I've never had any like car accidents in this lifetime. Previous ones, yes, but not in this one. And I remember I started having this random fear of driving come on, and I realized that it was actually because I had been letting my partner drive so much that anytime that I wanted to get behind the wheel, I hadn't done it in so long that the fear was there. It became unfamiliar, and then I started avoiding it. And then because I avoided it, it got worse, and it became almost like a complex. And then I was talking to a psychotherapist I was working with at the time. We were doing EMDR and stuff like that to help to treat some of my past traumas. And he was like, did it get worse when you started avoiding it? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, stop avoiding it. Get behind the wheel, face the fear, just drive. And the first time I got back behind the wheel again, it was like all the fear was running through my mind. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to crash. I'm going to veer off the road. It's going to be insane. Nothing happened. I was fine. Did it again, did it again, did it again. And now it's like I don't even think about it. I just get in the car. So it's like we have to get over these fears. We have to face them, and we have to do that repeatedly so that we can trust ourselves.
Yeah.
Basically, it's conditioning.
Yeah.
So Brandy
And in
says she
regard,
signed up for the event. Yay! Welcome, Brandy. I'm
oh,
so
yay,
excited.
Brandy. In regards to fear of the future too, like using that example, it's to me, obsessing about the future is my fear of doing the thing that I'm called to do in the present moment. So, like I
Yeah.
was describing before, you have an answer as to what you're meant to be doing in this moment. And it might be very different from what your mind is telling you to do, which is why maybe you believe you don't have that answer. But if you were to really check in, that to me, like, you don't have to have heightened all of your psychic abilities to be able to ask yourself in this moment, what am I meant to be doing? For me, for the longest time, going back to that whole feminine energy thing, I was meant to be resting. And my
Yeah.
mind was like, absolutely not. Like, that is the last thing I need to be doing. And as soon as I stopped listening to that fear that it wasn't safe for me to rest and I started resting, a lot started to change in my life. So much started to shift. I started to get so much more energy, obviously, from the rest, but also I was getting ideas for videos, which then led me to create this YouTube channel and build this whole new community for myself. And that's truly what I was wanting to do before, but I was trying to force the action before
Mhm,
taking the rest. And so it wasn't working. And I was just like, I felt like I was on like a hamster wheel. I wasn't moving forward at all. So it was the very thing that I knew actually felt the best. My body was craving rest. My soul was needing it. It was my mind
mhm,
that was making it miserable. So
yeah,
doing that thing that I was most afraid of ended up helping me. And we all know it's just that our minds tell us that we don't and that we're making the wrong decision. So I would say that that is like a huge part of overcoming fear of the future. It's facing what you're being called to do in the now and stop letting your mind and your ego convince you that that thing that you're being called to do is wrong because
mhm.
deep down you probably already know.
Yeah. And a lot of the time, like the fear of what we're projecting as these possible negative outcomes is not really actually even going to be that bad. Sometimes, I mean, it's going to vary by example. But it's funny that you mentioned hamster wheel because that's a synchronicity I wrote down this morning. Where was it? That was from this morning. Yeah, it's a hamster wheel about getting distracted or stuck in a loop of thought. And
Yeah.
it came up when I was watching a video by Dr. Amen, and he's a specialist on brain scans, ADHD, and he has this whole theory about ants, like automatic negative thoughts. And how he recommends treating them is to write them down and to actually look at them and to ask yourself, is this true? Is this 100% true? Is this realistic? And it's just kind of like getting it out of your head and on paper, or even just like discussing it with someone, saying it out loud. It can make you realize how irrational it is, not in every case, but in some. And it's helpful to help to kind of get through it that way too. And that's why I love having conversations together, Michaela, because we both see where our mind has told us a lie and we're
Yes.
able to get to the truth together. And that's very helpful.
Yeah, the fear of the future is a hamster wheel. If you don't break that habit, if you don't actually address what's going on in the present moment, and it zoom out and recognize you are always going to be on that hamster wheel,
Mhm,
and life is going to be one big I'm afraid of the future and not living in this moment and then regretting. And I know that's challenging to face and to hear
mm,
sometimes because I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy to get off of that hamster wheel, but we deserve that. We deserve to be able to live in this moment and experience life where we are right now in all of its pain sometimes, but
yeah,
also all of its beauty. That's the only way to truly experience life and to feel satisfied and fulfilled. And so that's why I'm so committed to this because I don't want to be on this hamster wheel where in every moment of my life I'm waiting for that next achievement to make me feel satisfied and then never feeling satisfied.
yeah,
And I also agree with you too that like the talking about it is what has helped me to get off of that hamster wheel. So conversations like this, I find it funny that you were talking about writing down your thoughts because that's a synchronicity for me. My mom mentioned on the phone to me that she started doing morning pages, and I've had so much resistance to doing that. It's just like stream of consciousness journaling in the morning. And I started doing it the past 2 days, and I was like, damn it, this does work.
I don't want it to work, but it does.
But it really does. Like these fears, these thoughts, they're just needing an outlet and we
Yeah,
need to start facing them so that we can get off the hamster wheel and live.
yeah, like live, truly live. And it takes a lot of courage to really live. It takes some cojones. It takes, what did I say in my
Yeah.
last video? I was like, it takes boobs. Like it takes boobs to do these hard things. Because it's scary to put yourself outside of your comfort zone consistently. It's scary to have faith. It's scary to have hope. That's another big one. I see a lot of people going into this hopelessness, and I found myself there recently as well, feeling like nothing's ever going to change, or it's only ever going to get worse, or like this and that. And that's again those negative thoughts. That's the fear. That's the
Yeah.
loop. That's that devil energy trying to get in there, sink its claws in. And I
Yeah.
had to actively be like, no, I'm choosing no. Like I have free will. I do not consent to that. I don't want that, so I'm not going to believe it. Point blank, end of story. Like just no,
Yeah.
flat out no. And it's kind of like I talk about intentional delusion in terms of manifestation sometimes, where like we have to have that faith, that optimism, and that hope, even in the absence of the physical evidence, to be able to confirm it down the line. And again, this is part of like pushing through the barrier of the fear to see things actually come to fruition. And you won't know until you do it,
Yeah.
but if you keep doing that and you're relentless with it, it will happen. Like it has to. It's just the law of cause and effect. It has to
Yeah.
happen. It's just maybe how long it's going to take. And
Yeah.
how strong does your faith and your hope and your action that reflects that, how strong does that have to be? It's going to maybe vary from person to person, but it will prove effective.
I love that intentional delusion because it's like I'm willing to look at my fears, I'm willing to face them, I'm willing to be with parts of me. I'm
Yeah.
not rejecting or abandoning or shutting down, but I know that I get to create this.
Yeah.
I know that I'm the one that's in charge and it's being in your power while also not rejecting yourself and not dissociating. So I really love that.
Because that's the whole hamster wheel thing, is like you can get caught in this loop of the reality is reflecting to me this thing that I fear, that I don't want, or that is painful, and that's the only reality I know, and so that's what I become attached to as the projection for the future. So the only way to break that loop is to interfere, throw a wedge in the works, so to speak, with that intentional hopefulness. If we want to call it something else, like delusion, maybe not as accurate, like intentional hopefulness or intentional
Yes.
faith. That's
Yes.
what breaks the cycle, and it's not doing it once. Like I said, it's because it's a conditioning thing. We're working with the human brain here, which functions on repetition patterns, and the subconscious is imprinted like that as well. So we have to keep at it. We have to be relentless with our faith. And I love your word of devotion, because it's like it's not about disciplining the mind, it's about being devoted to this faith, devoted to this outcome, devoted to this path, whatever
Yeah.
it is, and trusting the intuitive nudges that you are getting very clearly as you move forward,
Yeah.
and just continuing to
Absolutely.
do that. It's funny that you just did that, because earlier you said something and I had this impulse to snap. I didn't want to interrupt or distract you.
It would never distract me. It's like cheering me on, keep me going.
Yes. Yes,
Also,
girl.
Glitzer, I love you've been doing the morning pages. I literally started them 2 days ago, so you started 1 day before me, and yeah, it's so helpful.
Look at
Mm.
that. I love, see, this is why I like talking about it in a public forum, because we can see how we're all aligning in these ways, and how we're getting onto that same timeline, and how things are all synchronistically connected. That can be another way also to help improve the faith, because spirit will show you information about what is to come, not so that you attach to it, but so that you're prepared, or so that you can take evasive action if need be, or so that you can embrace what's coming, or whatever it happens to be. That's why I'm such an advocate for synchronicities. I know it doesn't work for everyone, or maybe it's not the path for everyone, but it works really well for me, because spirit will prepare me for kind of like the energies I'm working with in the present, and how that impacts what's upcoming in the future, or what I'm working to create. Sometimes they'll even prepare me for uncomfortable moments that are to come, but I won't always have context as to how those are going to unfold until it does. And so I don't get attached to the fear of it, and I don't perpetuate it. I just kind of like, I'm like, okay, I'm noticing this. I don't know what it means yet, but I'm going to kind of keep it in my back pocket for later. And then when it comes up, I go, ah, yes, this is what they were talking about. Now I can deal with it in a more empowered way, because it's not even about like being able to predict the future. I don't think that's necessarily productive in a lot of cases. It's just being able to be prepared
Yeah, I
in the
think it
now.
helps It helps you to remember this is divine, even if
Mhm.
it doesn't look or feel divine, like this is meant to be happening, and it helps you to enter that energy of faith because you were told, "Oh, something like this would happen, so
Yeah,
clearly it's meant to happen. It's not some mistake. I haven't done something wrong here."
yeah.
And I think that really does help with the faith.
Yeah, and it's helped me learn through that experience. Like there was an example of some synchronicities that I was getting about. a topic, and this was a while ago, and I don't even remember what it was because that's why I have to write everything down because it's like, but it was something about this topic that was controversial. And then a few weeks later, I got a comment from someone on one of my videos, and it was on that topic, and it was triggering for me. And I was like, oh, but spirit prepared me for that. So now I'm able to not react, I can respond because I have been prepared.
Yeah.
And that's what helps to keep us out of this fight or flight that puts us into that fear loop and that fear spiral so that we can trust ourselves and trust what we're getting, so it's very helpful to be prepared in that way because it keeps you more grounded, more anchored, and stable in yourself so you can feel into what feels right and push through anything that is trying to dissuade you from your own truth.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom with us, Siobhan.
And you too, likewise, Michaela.
Mhm.
This was fun. Yeah. So we'll be doing more of this, you guys. And so our upcoming event on the 7th of July will
Mhm.
be a hypnotherapy energy work activation session. So if you guys are interested in that, you can sign up now, reserve your spot, and connect with me and Michaela behind the scenes in that private online. Are we doing it through Zoom? Through Zoom,
Yep.
right? Yeah, through
Yep.
Zoom. So it'll be an online Zoom event. You don't even have to turn your camera on if you don't want to. It'll be very relaxing, healing. We're going to help to basically like deprogram some of those fear responses in the subconscious mind and work through any of the energy blockages that may be contributing to those negative thought cycles repeating, things like that.
Yeah. We'll be
Yeah.
doing a Q&A at the end too. So
Yeah.
the whole event itself is going to be about 90 minutes, but the part with the little bit of discussion that Siobhan's going to lead just to refresh us on this whole topic, and then the hypnotherapy and energy healing, that will
Yeah.
be an hour, and then the Q&A at the end is optional if you want to discuss this more. Um,
Yeah.
Yes, and the sign up link, I think Siobhan put it in the
Yeah.
description of this live. It's michaelamariner.com/book dash online, but I would click the link because
Yeah.
my
The
name
link
is
is
spelled,
below.
yeah, my
Yeah.
my name is spelled a little differently. But yeah, we're gonna be doing that at 3 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, July 7th. We'll also be sending out a recording if you can't make it at that exact time.
Yeah, 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 that's another thing, like, if you're not able to make it for the live event, you still get the download, and you still get the activations, you still get the healing, you still get the hypnosis, all of that. The only thing you'd miss out on if you weren't there live is the Q&A, where if you had a question or some comments or something, you could interact with us that way. But we'll be doing more live streams like this too, so if you guys have questions, we can always do that here as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so glad that some of you guys got something really powerful out of this, just being able to connect with us and our experiences. And yeah, we would love to see you at our event and answer any questions that came up for you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Hello to all of the members who are here. I see
Mhm.
Stephanie and Glitzer and Kevin was here earlier as well. And I can't see all of them, but Brittany, or sorry, Brandy. Yeah, love you guys. Thank you for being here, everyone. And we will see you at the event, or we will see you in the next live stream or in one of our own separate videos. Don't forget to check out Rituals by Michaela here on YouTube. She has amazing content. I highly recommend.
Mhm. Thank you so much for having me, Siobhan.
You're very welcome. It's always my pleasure. Love you, Michaela.
Love you. All right.
All
Bye,
right.
guys.
Bye, guys.